Hi, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Facebook Live. I am super excited to be talking about this. You all might remember we had a conversation with Dr. Ira Byock a few months ago on these conversations we have to have with our loved ones that are never easy. And so today I'm thrilled to be speaking with Dan Lagani. He's not only an entrepreneur and a businessman, but also one of my closest friends. This is not a sponsored chat. We are just two good pals talking about an important subject. And hey, Dan, welcome.
Monica, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Doing great. Here in New York, you are exactly where in the state of Florida?
I am in West Palm Beach, but as you know, I'm a New Yorker at heart. I just relocated down here last fall, but I'm happily 21 stories up looking out at the water in West Palm Beach as we speak today.
Oh, wow. You're in a high rise. How cool. I love those buildings.
Yeah.
Super fun living. Well, you did the right thing moving to Florida, as I think we were talking just a bit earlier from Manhattan. So great to have you today. I know that so many people are faced with this specific issue with their parents. I happen to love my aunts and uncles, and it's often also a conversation that we can facilitate for our cousins and friends. And so it's not really just for you if your parents are aging. I mean, obviously all of us are, but it's also, I meant to give you some conversation starters and some tools to get going on this really important subject. I just had to do this actually a year and a half ago when my mom was living by herself. And I can share with you, it was a process. It was not a one conversation and off you go. Dan, I want you to start by telling us a little bit about your background and Silver Solutions so people have a context.
Sure. And you're absolutely right. It is absolutely a process. And I'm excited to talk with you today about not only the experience with your mom, but what we see in our company on a regular basis. But to take you up a couple of hundred feet, I spent a lot of my life working in media and marketing companies, and I ran a number of well-known magazines, including Better Homes and Gardens, and a number of digital companies. But it was in 2011, I had been brought in as part of the company of executives, a group of executives, to help restructure the very venerable Reader's Digest brand after the company had gone bankrupt. And we were looking at different ways to reach out to people that loved and knew the name Reader's Digest. And what was really clear was, while it may not be the most perfect advertising vehicle because its audience had grown older along with the brand, we had a really loyal following of very old, long-time subscribers. And the thing that stood out to me was that there must be a way to create value for someone that cared about the ability to reach 30 million plus adults that were well into their 60s. And what came out of it was a program that we created with Humana, the well-known insurer, and we created a Medicare Advantage program that was somewhat similar to what United Healthcare had done with AARP. And it was a wonderful experience for me to get to understand the importance of the seniors insurance marketplace and really the needs that older adults in general had had. Up until that point, Monica, I had really experienced it through my grandparents. I was fortunate to have both of my grandparents until they were all into their 80s. And my mom's father actually lived to 99. So, you know, there was a lot of experience that way and a lot of family experience. But I got to see the business side of it for the first time when I was creating that insurance program with Humana. So very interesting. And from that point forward, I knew I wanted to involve in a business full time that catered to the needs of older adults. And that's how I became involved with my partner just about 2 years ago, and a company at the time that she had started called Nothing Forgotten. that began in Chicago, and she had relocated to New York. And originally, I worked with her as an advisor. I was trying to help her figure out ways that the business could grow and expand its footprint. And after about 6 months of doing that, I realized the importance of the work we were doing and wanted to do this full time. So I joined, and together we have expanded the company, which was part of the reason I relocated to Florida. And today we work with older adults and families, really 65 until the end of life. And we like to believe that what we do really well is help make the process of growing older easier, safer, and less stressful for the adult as well as for the adult children. So that's how I started to become interested in the market, and how I wound up here as one of the co-founders of Silver Solutions.
So you basically are a service, right? Essentially, people can reach out to Silver Solutions, and you provide what exactly? A to Z. You find the place, you
Sure.
help move.
Yep. We
All
do
of that.
three things. And they really, what we focus on, and it was what I found so important about the work that my partner Laura Oliveras had started with, is that there are a lot of resources for the medical needs of older adults. There's Medicare. There are private paid doctors that you can go to. There are a lot of resources for the financial needs of older adults. We hear retirement planning information almost from the day that we start to work. But what became profoundly clear was there was not nearly the focus that there needs to be on creating the physical environment that we grow older in and making it safe. So as a company, what we do is help ensure that wherever home is, whether it's in your own home or whether it's in an assisted living community, that your home is safe and your home remains a relevant and suitable place for you, even as your mobility needs change. Because that's certainly one of the things that happens as we all get older. Suddenly, the ability to climb over the tub and into the shower becomes a little more difficult. Navigating the staircases is not the same when you're 85 as it is when you're 35 or 45. So we provide the home safety guidance and improvements, and we do that work for older adults and their families. Again, whether they're in their own home or they need to be relocated into some form of assisted living, and we create home for them again there. And then we work with families after that move or after the loss of a loved one to help make the space that is now getting ready for the next person to move in right. So we work with families to help dissolve a home after they've relocated a loved one or after they've lost a loved one. And it's those three services of safe living, relocation and downsizing, and home dissolution that give us the specialty in making the space that older adults live in and have been occupying physically safe and easier for the families to handle after the loss of a loved one.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so great. I definitely could have used that help myself at the time. Um, so let's talk a little bit about, and for everyone, please post your questions. I have just seen two questions that we are definitely going to ask Dan to help answer. But one of the questions that keeps coming up is, how do you start that conversation if you see your aging loved one struggle with, just basic things? When it was my mom, her mobility was an issue. Luckily, she never took a fall, but you start seeing those signs that, a conversation has to start on their living, trying to stay independent, for example. What are some of your recommendations around that subject and starting it?
Well, I think we may have even mentioned it before we came on the air that it's a process. Nobody, and I joke that my grandfather, my mother's father, at 95, after having gone to Florida every winter for 20 years, announced one day that he wasn't going to Florida next year because there were too many old people there. And I remember thinking at 95, what a great perspective that I'm not old, they're old. And that I didn't realize just how universal that was. So, when we go to expositions and forums and talk to older adults directly about what we do at Silver Solutions, it's not at all uncommon for people to think they don't need the help. So it becomes a process. And, I'm from a family where there are three boys and a girl. I will tell you what I see firsthand. It's usually the adult daughter that is the one that's having the conversation. They tend to do it just more regularly than the sons. I don't know why. But the conversations start. And one of the most important things that we always say is make certain that you're not making it about you, but that you're making it about your mom or your dad. And the reasons why you're concerned about their safety. And it's so interesting. We all seem to be used to having conversations about getting medical help. But when it comes time to get help with making the environment safer, or when it comes time to consider that you may have to move to assisted living or some form of skilled nursing to provide the extra level of care that your mom or dad needs, that seems to be the trigger that is harder for the older adult to hear for the first time. So direct, compassionate, and making it really about them, and understanding that getting a home care agency to come in, or if the right move for you is to relocate to assisted living, isn't the end of something. In many cases, it's actually the beginning of another wave of independence and freedom that you bring back into your life. So it's an important conversation, and it's a process. It's iterative, and it very definitely has to be compassionate and about why you're concerned for them, not for you, but for your mom or your dad.
Right. Yeah, it's so important. When I started noticing that stuff about my mom, we had a conversation apropos of somebody else, which always tends to be super useful, because if there's an example and someone else is doing something, it kind of introduced that subject. The first step I persuaded my mom to do is to let me help her with her finances. And I'm so grateful that she agreed to share and also to give me access and control, because not soon after that, she was scammed in an ATM machine of something like $2,000, which was lucky that it was just that. And so I think also using some examples and other, things that can show them they need a little help, that it's okay, to get some help. And in my mom's last days, she was so happy that, everything was handled, that those conversations tend to, I think, be super successful. One of the questions that comes up is from Judy Davis: what are some of the words you can use to let your loved one know they can no longer be alone? I don't know if that's something that you've handled directly or with someone, but it seems to be a consistent question here on the chat.
Yeah, and again, I'll make a recommendation. First of all, there is a great book that I will recommend on to you, and it's called "Oh My God, I'm Getting Older and So Is My Mom," and it's written by a gentleman by the name of Scott Greenberg, who was originally a New Yorker. Scott now owns a big home care agency in Palm Beach County, and it's a wonderful book because it addresses those kinds of issues in a very clear and matter-of-fact way. There's no doubt that most of us are going through this process for the first time with our own parents. So reaching out for help is most certainly a wonderful thing. But what I would say is it's not even so much the words that you choose, but again, that idea of making it clear that it is coming from a place of compassion and it's coming from a place of concern, and ultimately in helping to understand that it can be better. The first decisions to think about are, is your mom or dad capable of staying at home? And that if you look at statistical surveys, AARP does a survey every few years. The answer that comes out is 9 out of 10 older adults want to grow older in their own home. So most people like the idea of remaining in their own home, although it's not right for everybody. And we look at, there's 4 things really. First, it's desire. Where do you want to be? Then it's your physical health. it's the physical environment that you're in, and then it's finances. And in that intersection of topics, you find the right answer. You find out whether or not you're in a home that can be modified. And, so much in the Northeast are split level homes where a master bedroom isn't necessarily on the main floor. In Florida, it's quite different. There are more homes that are ranches as there are in the Southwest and the West. So it comes down to those things of what does mom or dad want and where do they want to be? What is their physical and what are their physical and medical needs? What's the environment that they're in? Can it be modified to match up with those? And then what are their finances? And so have the conversation, worry less about the words and more about the intention and the sentiment of what it is that you're trying. And don't become disappointed if it doesn't take hold the first time or the second time. It is very definitely a process, and it could take several months to move slowly into a place where your mom or dad feels comfortable with the decisions that they're making, and they need to feel like they're making the decisions in concert with you for themselves.
Mm-hmm. So true. They'll take a journey. It's not one conversation, I guess. Let's talk a little bit about what are the options. If mom and dad can't live independently anymore, what are some of the choices? I mean, I know there's the range of super expensive, beautiful assisted living.
Sure.
What do you offer as options?
So again, our company focuses on, and we're really agnostic, right? We focus on if home is the right choice, we'll make your home physically safe and suitable for what your mobility needs are. If some form of assisted living is the right choice, we'll relocate you and recreate home for you there. So we don't necessarily have a specific choice, and we don't play a role in helping people to decide. But the decision process of where people and family members that have determined that they can't live independently anymore because they, back to those things we said earlier, that they've chosen that it's not what they want, or their health requires that they have a higher level of care on an ongoing basis, and they need to be in a safe physical environment, that may have some security to it because they have dementia or some other form of, a challenge that makes the environment that they were previously in no longer tenable. There are a range of options, and they start progressively at the least, different, which is independent living. These are communities of older adults that are largely living on their own, with services provided to them lightly, things around the home. Again, it's just making everyday living a little bit easier. Those are independent living communities. The next level up, and really one of the things that has changed in a really positive way in the last decade, are assisted living communities. Assisted living communities are not dissimilar from independent living in that you're living in your own space with your own furniture, but now you have meals provided to you that you can take in the dining hall. There are transportation services that are available to you, and they are really wonderful, almost hotel-like communities that an older adult can live in. From there, in assisted living, you can still have that setting, even if you need memory care. And memory care, again, is for someone that has some sort of dementia and or Alzheimer's like impairment, where they need to be in an environment that they can't wander off. So assisted living communities also provide that as an option for people that have that sort of challenge. And then the thing that we grew up knowing, I think all of us, as what happened when you got older, was skilled nursing, which is what used to be called a nursing home. Right. So when you think of, and I do believe it's the reason why 9 out of 10 older adults say they want to grow older at home, is because we think of an old line traditional nursing home, which is a hospital-like setting with RNs and very specific medical care that's available to an older adult. But most people don't need that. So a large percentage of people are going to have their needs taken care of if they can't stay in the home that they're in or find a suitable place on their own in independent living or assisted living. That really is the set of choices. And the last place is there are continuous care communities that you can start progressively in independent living and move on through as your needs change into different parts of the community and
Oh, wow.
wind up in a skilled nursing setting if you need that. In
That's
fact,
so interesting.
locally, you may know in Westchester County, the Osborne in Rye, New York, is what is a typical continuous care community. So you have different care options that are available to you there. So you can make a choice, move there, and utilize the different service levels as your needs change over time.
Mm, that's smart. I love that. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about this current COVID-19 pandemic, and how do I need to think about how to take care of my mom and dad
Yeah, yeah.
going forward.
I was saying earlier today that one of the great unfortunate ironies is that the most at risk population, older adults, are now being forced to choose between sheltering in place to remain socially distant and dealing with the challenges that in normal times are one of the greatest challenges for an older adult, and that's isolation and the depression that comes from being too isolated. So I think one of the first things to be cognizant of is that while we want to physically protect our loved ones and our mom and dad and our family members that are older from contracting the virus, we also need to be attuned to the fact that it's increasing in many cases the isolation that they're experiencing. So we need to check in with them other ways and really making use of phone calls and FaceTime and Zoom and all the other technology that has made the ability to bridge that divide a little bit easier for all of us. So number one is to be cognizant of the fact that we're dealing with these diametrically sort of opposed outcomes of trying to stay physically safe from the virus and ensuring that we still have a happy, healthy mom or dad who doesn't feel isolated, alone, and depressed. So the first thing is to be aware of that. And I think one of the other easy ones is that ensure that and we do it with Silver Solutions because while we do a lot now virtually through, our initial assessments and our initial consultations are all through Zoom, eventually at some point when we're doing work, we're sending teams into the home. Make certain that anybody that is working with and or for a mom or a dad or working in an environment where there are at-risk populations is fully not only protecting themselves, but protecting others using a full range of personal protective equipment. Now, we did that. We're doing it even more consistently, but we were doing it previously in environments that were physically unsafe. Now we're making certain that there are masks, gloves, coveralls, and in the most extreme cases, face shields. And while it may not look as friendly as we once did, it is the most important thing that you can ask for any home service provider that's coming into contact with an older family member to take into account. And if they're not willing to do it, it's time to look for another service provider, without a doubt.
Where is Silver Solutions available? Sandy McKenna wants to know on the chat.
Yeah,
Where can you offer
we are
this?
currently available in the New York metro area, Chicago, and now South Florida. And I say that, but we very often wind up working with, for example, we have a family in Washington, D.C. That we're working with whose mom is in Florida. So we're in places where there is where there's a geographic need, but we have the ability to help people remotely. But if you need a full service concierge experience, we can do that for you in New York Metro, in Chicago, and in South Florida today. And we can help you remotely and virtually to project manage for you and get all of your work done virtually in every other part of the country.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And so how does the process work? People reach it. Silversolutions.com is the site. I know. And
Right.
then your Facebook page is Facebook Solutions US.
Yep,
Tell
Silver
us a little bit
Solutions
just
US.
about
That's right.
how do people access you? How does the process work? I find you, and then
Mm-hmm.
I have a need. What happens? Then you're probably holding my hand for a couple of months.
Yeah, and by the way, we also have an easy phone number that's 1-877 age safe AGE SAFE. So you can reach us online or you can call us. And from there, we do an initial consultation and we'll ultimately set up a virtual assessment of the home that your mom or dad, or if it's you that's making the call yourself as an older adult, we'll do the assessment with you, and we do a virtual tour of the home to understand in that process both what your desires are and what the physical environment needs are. And from there, within 48 hours, we come back with a very detailed estimate as to the services we believe that you need. And from there, providing that it's acceptable to the family, we start our work. And generally, Monica, we're doing work where possible within the context of a week. I would say that this is about as on demand for the kind of work that we do as you can get, because from that initial phone call, we're turning around an estimate within 48 hours. And, we're sitting here in the middle of May, and we're doing work next week to ensure that people can make their move out of a home and or apartment that gets them into their new place by June 1st. So we generally do our work within a 7-day period where possible. Sometimes it stretches on a little longer just based on the needs, and more complex things. For example, if we're renovating a bathroom and removing a bathtub and putting in a walk-in shower, or we're changing the height of countertops in a kitchen, jobs like that take a little bit longer. But by and large, we are very happy that from that initial phone call or web entry, we are doing a virtual assessment within the next day, sending out the detailed proposal of how we can complete the work within 48 hours, and then getting the work done within 7 days in most cases from the moment that somebody says yes.
Wonderful. Wow, that's really not something I had thought would be a business, and I think it's brilliant. And we miss you around here. I hope you come back soon then to visit, although distance visits work very well. We had one on Sunday with lawn chairs, 6 feet apart. Bring your own. So that works well too. So Dan, thanks so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to share for everyone to know about the Silver Solutions and how to get in touch with you?
No, I would just say, thank you for the opportunity to answer some of the questions and really get to a topic that is so important and that most of us seem to arrive at in a moment of crisis and uninformed. And I think I would end it with, you don't have to go through it alone. You don't have to be uninformed. There are experts in so many areas of how growing older can become easier. And in case of the physical environments, and ensuring that they're safe and suitable and that they're easy to get to and from, Silver Solutions can absolutely be the resource for you. So visit us at silversolutions.com. Call us at 1-877-AGE-SAFE, or visit us on Facebook at Silver Solutions US. And we're there to help. And, I'm glad to have had the opportunity with you today to spread the word a little bit. And even if you don't use us, recognize there are resources out there that we should all be calling on to make the process easier and less stressful for our parents and for ourselves.
Really important work, Dan. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. And everyone, we're going to go back to the page right now just to see if there are any more questions. Feel free to share. And we're going to share this video a little further so that many more people can see it. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Monica. Thanks again. Bye.